They will not save you. They want you to work a minimum surviving job that you can afford a can of shitty dog food to be a cog in a wheel.
Have you ever wondered why we have the public school system that we have today? Because it wasn't always like this. In fact, for most of human history, schools didn't even exist. For most of human history, you were a kid, you just grew up learning to do whatever your parents did, learning how to survive, and then that's what you did for the rest of your life until you taught your kids how to do the same thing. But by the year 1900, there were public school systems everywhere. Compulsory, government-mandated public schooling systems where kids went and learned things that seemed arbitrary, maybe unrelated to the things they would end up doing for the rest of their lives, with kids who were their same age, growing up learning things with these kids together their entire lives. For what purpose? There is intentional design behind the schooling system we have today. It's not the way it is because it happened to be so. It was set up that way on purpose. They conditioned kids for boredom and monotony, made them sit in classrooms facing one direction for long periods of time with very little breaks, had bells to signal when it was a time that you were allowed to move from one place to another, dark, boring hallways, prison-like buildings, standing in line, the inability to play outside of very specific hours. The intention was to churn out a citizenry of workers. Even today, this ideology is ingrained in Americans. Go to school, get good grades, get a good job. That's it. That's the point. That's the entire reason behind the education system. It was designed from the ground up to churn out an entire nation of workers, employees who would work from the day they left school until the day they died, making the corporations they worked for rich. And by around 1910, for the first time in American history, we had an entire nation of employees, people who only knew how to become workers for somebody else, people who were not entrepreneurs, who were not business owners, who were not merchants, who were employees. They were trained from the beginning of schooling until the very end how to do one thing and one thing only: obey orders in terms of working, be an employee. This is why today, when you see people who get the best grades, they're not the people that go out there and start companies, that are entrepreneurs, that are founders, that are CEOs, that go out there and change the world. The people who get the straight A's, the A's and B's, they're the best employees. That makes sense because when you go to school and you get good grades, you're the person that doesn't fool around for the most part. You're the person that pays attention in class, respects and listens to authority. You do what you're told. You're able to collect information and regurgitate it. Every single thing you're trained to do from kindergarten through high school graduation and now college, university, master's, PhD as well, is all trained to make you a better and better and better what? Employee. Now, obviously, the kids who drop out and who get F's, they're gonna be employees as well. They're just not gonna be the best employees. It's also interesting that the kids who get C's, they're smart enough to be able to make sure that they're not dropouts, that they're able to graduate, but they're not spending their time trying to get the best grades possible. And it's one reason why usually these are the people who are the entrepreneurs, who are the CEOs, who are the creative types, the musicians, the ones who go out there and change the world. They're too rebellious to be able to get lumped into that system and pumped out in that line of factory workers that we call employees. Even if you think it's a good that we are churning out propagandized, brainwashed children, turning them into adults that are going to be workers, employees for the rest of their lives. There's a reason why certain things are not taught in school, like money. Money is freedom. Now, 100%, money does not solve all problems, but money does solve all money problems. And people are employees because they have money problems. Here's the hard truth. If you really understand how money works, you are not going to be a work slave, an employee, for the next 60 years. That is how I was able to escape the rat race, by learning how money worked. The truth is, if you really understand finance, if you understand accounting, if you understand investing, if you understand taxes, you aren't going to be an employee your whole life, which is exactly the reason why they don't teach it in schools. It is antithetical to the entire point of public schooling. It undermines the only reason it's there. It is there to produce a nation of workers. And if you teach them the tools they need for freedom to be able to escape that, you undermine your entire point. And instead of creating lifelong workers, you create somebody like me who works for, 10, maybe 11 years, and some of that part-time before they're able to escape.
They will not save you. They want you to work a minimum surviving job, a job that will let you just survive at the minimum level, to pay your taxes, to just get by, to be a cog in a wheel. And then they're hoping that you have bought into the fact that somewhere in the distant future, you will get just enough Social Security that you can afford a can of shitty dog food to eat out of every day, while renting someone's little bedroom that they've converted from their garage. Fuck that.
Keep quiet, don't make waves, be a cog in the system. We don't want to know that you exist, we just want to see that your job gets done. And this is the kind of thinking that is then handed down from generation to generation. The thinking comes from a place of desperation. And that's the thinking that's handed down generation to generation. And the weird part is, it's completely invisible to us. We hear this advice and we think it's right and we think it's normal. Take a look at the building you see behind me there. That is an Industrial Revolution era factory. It's about 100, maybe 120 years ago. What other building that we have today looks very similar to that factory? What do you think? Hospitals? What else? Schools. Schools are run according to the Industrial Revolution age of thinking. Picture this for a second. You drop your kids off at school, or you as a child are dropped off at school, and you line up in neat lines, and the foreman, the teacher, blows the whistle or rings the bell, and in your neat lines you go to your workstation and you sit down. You sit down at your little workstation and you work for a number of hours, and then the foreman, the teacher, blows the whistle, rings the bell, and you take out your little lunchbox and you can have some food. Then the whistle goes again, you go back into your workstation, you sit down. It is run according to an Industrial Revolution era factory. Why? Because we are training human beings to be cogs in a system, and we're still doing it.